that's dubbed Project Freedom.
That's right. The U.S.-led task force in the Middle East telling ships to reroute on day one of a new effort to reopen the Strait, while also raising the regional threat level to critical. Now, the president posting this on Truth Social over the weekend, saying countries from all over the world have asked the United States if we could help free up their ships, which are locked up in the Strait of Hormuz. Many of these ships are running low on food and everything else necessary for large-scale crews to stay on board in a healthy and sanitary manner.
All this on the heels of news that the British military says one of their ships has been hit by projectiles. We've got a lot to discuss this morning. We're bringing in now Fred Fleitz. He's a former National Security Council Chief of Staff and Senior Fellow at the America First Policy Institute. Good morning, Fred.
Good morning.
Morning.
So the Pentagon just announced 15,000 service members, guided missile destroyers, over 100 aircraft and unmanned platforms deployed to the Strait of Hormuz. What do we expect with regard to the timeline, the steps taken? Do we anticipate getting into some type of kinetic activity here?
I think there's a real possibility of that. Look, the president would like to wrap up this war, but he can't do so until he secures the Strait of Hormuz. Now, we know there's talks with the Iranians going on indirectly. We're getting peace plans from them. They seem to be unacceptable. I don't know whether we'll ever be able to negotiate a deal with the Iranians, but I think they understand force. That's what President Trump is saying right here. He's going to deal with the security risk. He's saying to the Iranians, you do not own this strait. And I think he's challenging them to stand down.
I want to bring in Amir Fakhravar, who's joining the conversation as well. He is the Senate chairman of the National Congress in Iran. In terms of what you have seen this weekend, Amir, President Trump is clearly taking a stand, guiding these ships through the Strait of Hormuz. But of course, now we're hearing that a British ship has been struck. Can you just provide a little bit of the background as to the negotiations, where we are right now, and also the state of the IRGC?
Thank you for having me. Let's first start. You mentioned about Mayor Giuliani. Let's pray for him.
Yes,
he's supposed to join us for the event at the President Trump's International Club this weekend, but we heard when we were there in Palm Beach that he was in critical condition. But it's good to remember he is the mayor of America. It's good to remember what happened in 9/11 in United States. Some people are worried about the war and going to the war, these type of things, but United States have been in the war with this regime, the terrorist regime of the Islamic Republic of Iran for last 47 years, the regime which chanted death to America, the regime which used all opportunity to kill Americans and American troops everywhere in Middle East and everywhere else, and the regime which helped those 9/11 terrorists to come and hit the heart of America. And no, the Islamic regime of Iran have been a threat forever over there. And President Trump is going to end this war. And right now you can see President Trump is giving them all opportunity. They are at the end of the road. As President Trump mentioned, 75% of IRGC's military capability is gone by United States and Israeli army. But still that 25% left should be taken care of, because Iranian regime and IRGC, they are the proxies of China and Russia. And definitely China and Russia, they don't want United States to have any type of influence in Iran again. After 1979, when they could get the full control of Iran, they don't want to lose it. And in this case, the best scenario is to just finish the job and destroy the entire capability of the IRGC.
Absolutely. And Fred, on that note, you know, my mind goes back to not that long ago, where many of these nations refused to step forward and not just assist, but collaborate with the U.S. to actually bring order back to the Strait of Hormuz. And now they're calling on President Trump, saying free our vessels. Our vessels, as well as the onboard service members from these respective countries, are now in dire straits. How do you actually summarize that with regard to diplomacy and the steps going forward?
I think Middle East power dynamics have been substantially changed by this war. Just about every state in the Persian Gulf has been attacked by Iran. The UAE, I think it was 4,000 or 5,000 missiles and drones. And these states now know that these missiles were pre-positioned to attack them, that Iran was always prepared to go to war with its neighbors when this war is over. And it will be over because I think either this regime will be overthrown or it's simply going to have to give in because the enormous damage being done to its economy. We're going to have an alliance of nations that views Iran as an enemy, an alliance that's much closer to the United States and Israel. I think it will be good for global security. So for those media people who say that Iran has somehow won this war when its military has been destroyed, they're just dead wrong.
Well, since the start of the war in Iran, they have executed at least 25 political prisoners, the IRGC has, some of whom were protesters of the January protests, Amir. And this alongside news that Iranian Nobel Peace Prize laureate Narges Mohammadi was hospitalized over the weekend after facing a significant healthcare crisis in prison. Tell us more. President Trump laid it out last week in a press conference about the brutality of the IRGC, but these protests are so brave, the people coming forward trying to help the United States in their effort, but also just trying to free their own people. Women are slaughtered on the streets for standing up for their rights.
Look, this regime cannot and should not survive. President Trump mentioned several times about 8 women have not been executed by his order, but he should look at every day, every morning. Right now, when I'm talking to you, they're executing another one. Every morning, they are executing some protesters. They are just reading Quran for them and saying, yeah, God said you should be killed. And who they are killing exactly? They are kids. They are kids from high school who have been protesting without any gun in the street, and they were saying, okay, for our future, we don't have job, we don't have any money, we don't have any future. We need to be a free and democratic country. And because of that, they arrested them. Some of these young kids have been executed. They have been arrested during this January's event. And just yesterday, they executed a very young kid who was arrested 4 years ago during the Mahsa Amini's protest. And he was tortured all these years. We have his voice. He was saying, yeah, they tortured me and asked me to confess for something that I didn't do. And then after 4 years of torture, they hanged him. And this type of regime definitely should not survive. And President Trump, I'm sure he knows that. If the first shot from American will happen again to go and destroy some of the military bases, then the Israelis will resume their campaign to just kill every single officials of this regime to the end of the regime. This is the thing should happen. And definitely the Iranian people, 90 million Iranians inside Iran, 10 million outside, they are ready. They are ready to finish the job when they realize that regime doesn't have anybody to shoot them in the street anymore. And this happened 3 months ago when regime killed 100,000 protesters. President Trump mentioned 42,000, but the real number is 100,000 protesters.
So Fred, let's build on this. So the objectives are very clear from the outset and even until now with regard to our mission in the Middle East. 1, reopen the Strait of Hormuz with no other obstructions. 2, seize the uranium and making sure that Iran never gets a nuclear weapon. Those 2, I think we're successful and we're headed down the right track. Now, on this topic of it, in terms of killing people, protesters, if you will, where does that fall within our negotiation diplomacy and moving forward with Iran with respect to liberating the individuals? Is that up to us? Is that part of the plan?
I think ultimately there's not going to be peace until the Iranian people take back their country, and the U.S. and Israel have set the stage to do that. Now, Newsmax CEO Chris Ruddy wrote an incredible op-ed in Newsmax, I guess 10 days ago, on the 9 reasons that the U.S. has already won this war. The main reason is that Iran is not going to get a nuclear bomb. Its missile arsenal has been destroyed. I got to tell you, there's no need to try to bring back this enriched uranium that's buried in Iran. It would be too dangerous for U.S. soldiers to dig up. We've bombed the heck out of it. I think what President Trump is going to do, he's going to monitor it with satellites. And if the Iranians try to recover it, we'll come back in. The key right now is to secure the Strait of Hormuz so President Trump can declare a victory and de-escalate to end this war. That's what the American people want. They don't want an endless conflict in Iran. We won. It's time to take the win and move on to something else.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, that makes sense. The Pentagon said Friday that the decision to withdraw the troops came after a, quote, thorough review of the department's force posture in Europe and is in recognition of theater requirements and conditions on the ground. Let's listen to what they had to say.
As you know, as we know, there has been some disappointment on the U.S. side when it comes to European reaction to what is happening now in the Middle East and the campaign of Israel and the U.S. against Iran. But I would also argue that what I'm hearing from all my contacts with European leaders is that European leaders have gotten the message. They heard the message from the U.S. loud and clear.
Okay, that, of course, is NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte at the European Political Community Summit taking place in Armenia this weekend, responding to the drawdown of troops in Europe. Amir, real quick, your reaction to what is occurring in Europe and President Trump taking a stand there as to saying no more NATO, an attack on one is attack on all, and you have not been there for the United States.
President Trump's position is 100% correct. And yeah, the U.S. have been there for Europeans. But you know where the Europeans have been during the last 47 years? They have been helping the Iranian regime, the terrorist regime. They have been doing business for them. Germany, United Kingdom, France, Italy, all the nations in Europe, they have been in good relationship with this regime. They have been doing business. You can see the German cars all over Iran, the Mercedes-Benz, the BMW and everything. And who have been in charge of that? It was exactly the gay Ayatollah who is, they are claiming he's in power, but he's in coma, the Mojtaba Khamenei, who was directly in touch with those companies. And you know, the U.S. should just consider who is the friend and who have been playing with United States. And regarding the Iran issue, the case is, as I mentioned always, is China. If the job is not done, China, who gave regime all those missiles, all those ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, everything? That was China and Russia. They are still there. And if US comes out of this area, then again, you will see from the corridors, the new corridors in Pakistan, which Pakistan is very friendly to China,
Gotcha.
They are sending again a lot of missiles, better missiles to regime.
True
it's
indeed.
better to finish
I want
the
to bring
job.
in Fred to get his quick comments on this matter.
Yeah.
I don't understand why the German chancellor keeps antagonizing President Trump, refusing to back this war in Iran, which is to the benefit of global peace. I think the president sent a shot across the bow to the Germans on NATO. I don't think he's pulling out. He's not going to pull all troops out. We have 35,000 soldiers, 13,000 airmen, 5,000 is significant. It's not the majority, but I think it's time for the Europeans to fall in line.
So true. Fred and Amir, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Good to be here.
Coming up, tensions escalating across the Middle East, Iran warning the U.S.